I'm Katie, and this is Within, a podcast empowering women to reimagine the unrealistic standards that have kept us from living in our truest nature. Here, we'll unravel the programming that's taught us things like perfectionism, shame, and overwhelm to settle into our deepest knowing and our truest selves. My hope is that these stories and conversations ignite tiny glimmers of resonance and awareness to remember the woman and the life you're so deeply aching for already exists within you. I'm Katie. This is Within, and let's get into it. Hi, how are you? We're going to do a little solo today. It's just me and you again. These are my favorites. I've been home from Panama from our women's retreat for a few days, and I thought we could take some time to just talk about it. How's that sound? I'm assuming you said great. I got home. It's Thursday morning right now. And I got home. I think I made it back to our house at like 1 in the morning, 1:15 on Saturday night. And then, so I went to bed probably at like 2. JP and I stayed up and talked just for a few minutes, like a little bit. I unpacked a few things, took a hot shower, probably crawled into bed around 2. And then my kids came running into my bed. If you don't know, I've got 4 kids. And they came running into my bed at 6 in the morning. And I have been on as a mom, which I love. I don't really believe in balance. Like, I don't get the concept. It doesn't work for me. But one of the things I do is wherever I'm at, I'm 100% in. So when I was in Panama, I was like 100% on in Panama. Like, I give my whole heart. I pour it all out. I don't really talk with the kids or JP. I am like there to lead women. And I take that role so seriously. And I'm 120% in. And then when I come home, I really compartmentalize and I put that away and I'm 100% on as a mom. And I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just the way I've had to operate because I think that the line can get really blurred between my career and my role as a mom and my role as a wife. And so I really try to compartmentalize things. I only share that to say I came home and what is that, Saturday night, Sunday morning, and it's now Thursday and I haven't quite decompressed really from the trip because I have been so on as a mom and in a good way. Like I love that. And so I thought it would be fun. One of the ways that I process things is either through writing or speaking. And so sorry, kids, it's me and you processing the retreat. That's just how it's going to go. That's what we're doing today. So I thought I'd take the time today to decompress for myself and to share with all of you, I don't know, just the experience of this past week. And I can't speak to the women's experience, although I was thinking about it. I'm like, maybe we should have some of the girls on. But I can share it to you from sort of what I witnessed and observed on the retreat and like what I saw happening with some of the women. So what I think was their experience as from an observer standpoint. And then just also what it felt like for me as a leader and sort of what I witnessed in my own experience. I will say that I debated whether or not to do an episode on the podcast about the retreat for a couple of reasons, but really because you have those sacred things that happen in your life. And I was just thinking about this, like, what could you compare it to? And I think, oh my God, I'm like already getting emotional. See, I knew this would happen. I haven't cried yet since I've been home because do you know what I mean? Like we're just moving so fast, you haven't had a chance. And I was like thinking in the back of my head, like, I just need like a good cry. Not because anything bad happened. So many wonderful things happen. I just need to like decompress it all. So forgive me as I digress, but I have a feeling I'm going to shed a few tears on this episode. But you know how you have those things that happen in your life that are really special for you. So I was just thinking about this, like if you're a mom and you've given birth, that experience of giving birth and you go to tell people about it and you're like, I can't explain it. It's hard to put into words, or you witness this incredible sunset and you're like, you're trying to explain it, or you go on this vacation, you're trying to put words to it. And no matter what, it doesn't seem to do justice. It almost like cheapens the experience, if you will. And you're like, it's hard to explain. I sort of feel that way about the retreat. Like it's really sacred and special for me. And so I'm going to try to put words to it. And I know that no matter what, it's going to fall short. So I just preface this as some of this is just a feeling that the English language fails us on. So that's sort of the caveat of what's happening here today. We're going to talk all things retreat. I'm going to share with you my experience and sort of what I witnessed and just some of the things I learned and what I'm taking with me. How's that sound? All right. I've got 2 cups of tea here to get me through this. Not just 1, but 2. So let's go ahead and dig in. I have a lot of things I want to share with you about the retreat and a lot of things that I've learned. And I'm just going to share with you right away that I have none of this planned out. Like this is all just me winging it, shooting from the hip here. So I have no idea where this is going to go or what I'm going to say. I'm just speaking from the heart. And so as we're sitting here talking, me and you, I'm thinking that one of the best way to organize this is just to start from the beginning. And maybe to start with why I wanted to do this retreat. And I don't know that answer really, to be honest. It's been a lot of things, but I feel like the past 2.5 years, I've been in a little bit of a cocoon. I've taken a step back from a lot of the things I was doing before I moved to California. So before I moved to California, I was running a pretty successful like online wellness business, if you will. I was running 4-week meditation programs kind of like back to back. And they were really impactful for a lot of women. They were really successful. I felt great doing it. I felt like I'd found my calling and my purpose. And then we moved to California a little over 2 years ago. And when that happened, everything changed for me. And I was not expecting it. It really knocked the wind out of me. Like had to take a step back and I was reevaluating like, what is it that I want to be offering to the world? What am I doing? What does this mean? Is there more to the story? We'll talk about that another day, but I really started questioning a lot of things. And because of that, I started doubting myself as a teacher and a leader. And I started doubting, I don't know, just myself. And so I pulled back really drastically, like just pushed the brakes on basically everything I was doing. And it took 2 years to go into a little bit of a cocoon and do more self-development work, as cheesy as that sounds, and kind of really re-examine some of these practices. And I don't know, just like my own thoughts on, I'm going to say wellness, but really on mindfulness and on meditation and what that meant to me and how I think that that could impact the world. And I really made a conscious choice that when I was going to come back out of my cocoon, I was going to do things with a really pure heart. Not that I didn't have that before, but I wanted to be of service. And while I was in my cocoon, I had been to Panama. My dear friend and mentor, Claire, leads a retreat in Panama every year that I've been attending as a guest. And it was really healing for me. And while I was there about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I was sitting in the shala and I was just doing a little meditation and I just pictured myself there. And there was this voice that came inside of me and it was just like, you need to come out of your cocoon. I see I'm crying already. It was like just this inner knowing of like, you need to come out of your cocoon. It's time. It's time. You have gifts. You have things you need to share. You have women you need to bring here. It is your turn to take the seat of the teacher. And I was like, I don't know about that. And I really resisted it for a little bit there. I kind of like went back and forth in my mind, like, am I really ready? Is this time? Am I supposed to be doing this? And I left that retreat and had a conversation with my friend and asked her, like, would you be open to me doing this? How would you feel if I did this? And of course, she was nothing but gracious and wonderful. And she's like, I support it 100%. It's time. You need to come out of your shell. You need to see yourself as a teacher. It's time. So that was January 2024. And I left that retreat. And after having a conversation with my friend Claire, and of course, like her being so incredibly supportive, which PS, we all need that in our life. Like we all need women who say, I see you. Yes, let me share the stage with you. And she's been one of those people for me. And I'm so grateful for that. And when I left that retreat, I reached back out to the retreat center and put my deposit down and said, I'm coming back in March 2025. I'm going to do this. And I think me just even doing that and stepping into that moment created a huge ripple effect on me that I didn't know would happen. And I think it was just believing in myself enough to see myself as the teacher once again and to pull myself out of that cocoon and say like, maybe you've been hiding the past 2 years. I know you feel like you've been needing some healing and you've been needing quiet time, and that's wonderful. And I think there's also a part of me that was hiding, that was scared. And that felt really vulnerable for me to put that money down on the retreat. And just share that with you because I think a lot of times we do things or we see people doing things and we think, must be easy for you. And I will tell you that the moment I put that deposit down until the moment with Sansara, there was always this, I mean, yes, I knew I was supposed to be there. And yes, I believed in myself. And there's also a little component of fear there of like, am I ready? Are people going to come? Is this going to be successful? What will people think? Will it go well? And I think we always will have that little voice inside of us that's nervous or scared. And we just have to do things anyway. Someone asked me recently about starting an online business. And she was like, I'm just nervous. Did you have that in the beginning? And I was like, did I have that in the beginning? I have that every single day of my life. Everything I do, every podcast I record, every Substack, every book proposal, everything I do with retreat. Yes, of course. It's because I want it so badly and my heart is so invested in it that of course there's a moment of fear of vulnerability and you just have to do it anyway. I think if you're not nervous or you're not scared, like, is your heart really in it? And so for me, there was a little bit of that like unsettledness, if you will, about the retreat, like nerves about it that I took as like a good sign. It meant I was invested in this. I really cared. And I was going to give it my whole heart and soul. And I really did. And I will say also, because I think I stepped out into that role of the teacher again and saw myself as a leader again, it had ripple effects in so many other things. I wrote my book proposal. I started the podcast. I've expanded to like teaching again in other ways. And I think once you take that seat and you claim it as yours and you say, yes, I am the leader. Yes, I am the teacher. The universe responds. And you're just like, okay. So it wasn't just even the retreat the past year that I was planning that was so impactful. It was everything else that also happened, the ripple effects that happened in other parts of my life because of that. So I share this with you to say that's sort of where it came from. And I will tell you, and we can get this into this later, the moment I walked back into the retreat center called Sansara, the name is Sansara. The moment I walked in there in March, just last week, I knew. I was like, oh yeah, you are home. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And I sat on the bolster for the first time and spoke as the leader and the teacher. You have those moments where like everything aligns and it's like that like powerful like force, like it all comes together. It was that moment for me and I was like, yep, this is something bigger than me took over, if that makes any sense. It wasn't me speaking, it was something bigger than me speaking. I know that sounds really cheesy. And so I just knew. And so I think I had that little like glimmer last year of like, I think this is possible. And then when I took that seat last week, at the retreat center, it confirmed everything I'd been thinking. I was like, yes, this is exactly where you're meant to be. So sometimes we have to put the action in first in order for the belief to happen. I think sometimes we sit at home waiting to feel prepared or ready or wait for this like magical sign or for all the stars to align and someone to present us this opportunity where we feel fully confident in ourselves and like it makes logical sense. And that's just not how the world works. We almost always have to put the action in first and then the feeling follows. And so for myself, even just putting the money down on the retreat center, the belief started to come after that. I was like, okay, I can do this. And so, just a reminder, like sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith and the belief in yourself will come. It always does. Okay. Let's talk about the actual retreat itself. So the retreat itself was a group of 24 women. I made 25. And it was in a place called Cambutal, Panama. If you don't know where that is, that's okay. I had a couple of the women even come in the truth. Like, I didn't even know where Panama was. I'm like, hey, I get it. I was sort of that same way. So where we go, we fly into Panama City and then we take about a 6-hour bus ride, I think southeast, if I'm picturing the map correctly, all the way down to the Pacific. And we are at the southernmost tip of North America. And so you're really remote. We're really out there. And it's really incredible because it's so remote and even taking this bus ride, people are like, wow, this is a lot of effort to get there. And I'm like, I know. And when you get there, you'll understand why. Because there's no one else there. There's nothing else there. And in our busy lives and a lot of the places we travel, it's so congested. You get to Cambutal and you're walking this beach and it's just us. And it's so beautiful. We have the entire resort to ourselves. We have the entire retreat center just to ourselves. It was literally just us 25 women. And that doesn't happen in our day-to-day life. So you walk the beach and you just see the girls that you were just in meditation with, or it's just us at dinner together. And you really feel free to be in the resort, just yourself, like just walking around freely. And that is in and itself such a gift. So the retreat itself was a yoga and meditation retreat. And I will say for everyone listening, I just want to preface this that sometimes when you think about the idea of like a yoga retreat, there's a certain thing like you picture people like doing handstands and doing these like really wild yoga practices. And although we did have, really beautiful yoga practices, that's not really what this was. So the actual like postures or poses, they're called asanas. It's just one of the 8 parts of yoga, right? Like yoga is so much bigger. It's a whole philosophy. It's a way of life. And so when we're on this retreat, we really talked about the idea of just like living your yoga. What does that look like? How do you practice living this in your day-to-day life? Like, yes, there's a practice that you do on your mat, but then there's a whole practice off of the mat that's even more important. It's really about the way you live your life. And yoga, just, stepping back, for those of you who may not know, just the concept, like the idea of yoga in the most simplest of terms just means to connect, to yoke, to bring together. And so we really talked about this idea of connection to ourselves, like coming back together with the women in the group and also to yourself. It was a moment of connection for you. And that is something we're missing in our day-to-day life. So while it was a yoga retreat, it wasn't about the postures, the actual physical practice. It was about an opportunity to come home to yourself, to reconnect with yourself on the deepest level. And that was really transformative for a lot of women. So I just throw that out there. I think sometimes we can get a preconceived notion of what a yoga retreat is. And we think like, oh, that's not for me. I can't do any of those postures, or I have a bad back, or I have a knee injury. I will tell you, we had women from the age of 27, I think it was our youngest, all the way up to 74, people with knee injuries who couldn't practice like the physical postures. And every single one of them had a beautiful yoga practice. And I'm not talking about like the actual postures. I'm talking about really living their yoga. And that's what women did on this retreat. We really lived the practice, which was really, really beautiful to see. Before we all arrived at Camp Hotel, and I will tell you, these 24 women, I think in that group, there were only 2 sets of people. No, I think there were 3 sets of people who knew each other, 2 who were in-person friends. So 4 people who knew each other, and then a group of friends who knew each other virtually, but didn't really know each other in person, had never met in person. And so really out of that 25 of us, 21 of us didn't know anybody, or really coming alone. And I think that can be really intimidating and scary. And like I've been in that situation many times. I travel alone quite a bit. It was always a little nerve wracking. And so one of the things that right away we did to kind of set the tone for the week, and I'm so grateful we did this. And I will share some other things that kind of translated the beginning of the week to sort of set the stage. And what I think helped make it be a really impactful week where everyone felt safe to be themselves is we did a Zoom call before we went and, face to face saw each other. And I'd said to the women, look, when we go on trips like this, it can be really easy to like want to buy a new wardrobe or buy some new yoga clothes. You're going to want to get a manicure and a pedicure, maybe get your hair done, like to show up in the best light possible. And I said, oh, that's all well and good. I said, what if instead we went into this week exactly as we are right now? I said, you don't need to buy anything. You don't need to get some new yoga clothes. You don't need a new bathing suit. You don't need to get a manicure or pedicure. Like you don't need to worry about how you look. Like just come exactly as you are right now. I think a lot of times we go into situations and we want to present ourselves in a certain light and we get really nervous and we feel vulnerable. And so we have our masks, right? Like we cover ourselves with whether it's like our makeup or our outfits, and we show up to these places being like, I feel great. I'm so confident. Look at me. Look how great. Look how perfect I can be put together. And I was like, what if this trip, like we just didn't do any of that? Like, what if instead we said, even like leave the makeup at home, leave the blow dryer at home, like just come as you are without any masks, without any need to perfect yourself or like put yourself together or show up in a certain light. Like, what if you just showed up exactly as you are? And if we all could agree to do that, and we all showed up without an air, without a front, without a mask, and you just showed up really vulnerably, and we're just like, I'm a little insecure if you're going to like me. I'm a little nervous, but like, here's me exactly as I am. And if we all did that, it just takes everyone's guard down. For the most part, everyone took that to heart and really showed up as themselves. And you can tell when people show up as themselves, like you feel the energy right away. And I will say, I think pretty quickly on our very first day, people were making friends and connecting because everyone was just showing up really authentically with their masks set aside. Before we even got to Panama too, we had talked on that Zoom call, and then many days while on the retreat, we talked this idea of practicing the 4 agreements. If any of you have read the book, The 4 Agreements, my friend and teacher Claire had done this on her retreat, and I really found it helpful. And so I took it with me on this retreat. And it's the idea of really showing up with intention and being mindful with our thoughts and our words while we're sharing space together. And so if you're not familiar with the 4 agreements, they're really simple. And the first one is just being impeccable with your words. So like really being conscious of the things that you say on retreat. So it can be really easy to go down the rabbit hole of like start talking about our kids and, schedules and careers or complain about our partners or whatever it may be. And really instead saying like taking a step back and being mindful of the words that we're saying and what we're contributing and how our energy is affecting those around us and really being impeccable with our word. And then the second is to not take anything personally. You took this idea of like things are going to happen in your day-to-day life. And you're going to want to make it about you. Like, right? Like someone doesn't sit next to you at lunch. You're like, wait, does she not like me? There's a whole story that happens in our head because we make it about ourselves and just giving ourselves permission to just say, I'm not going to take anything personally. Like I have no idea what's going on with them and it's not about me and I'm not going to take any of it personally. And the third is not to make any assumptions. And this was a really big one, especially going into a new experience. I had already, even as the leader and the teacher, some ideas of like how I wanted the retreat to go. You have some preconceived notions of like, this is what's going to happen. And then we're going to do this. And really showing up to the space saying, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, we're not going to make any assumptions about how the week's going to go. We're not going to make assumptions about how our body's going to feel. We're not going to make assumptions about I only eat this or I like that or I don't do this or I'm not a morning person. Like, we're taking all of that off the table and starting scratch and going into this really with an open mind and an open heart and not having any assumptions about any of it. And then the fourth and final thing was just to do our best, whatever that meant. And for some of us, that meant doing our best was taking naps during the day and sleeping in. And for some of us, it was getting to every single yoga class and going surfing every day. But either way, really being honest with yourself and checking with yourself, like what really is the best for you in this moment. So it was being impeccable with our word, not taking anything personally, not making any assumptions, and then doing our best. And so if we all could agree to do that, I was like, we are going to be in really good shape. And for the most part, like everyone took that really seriously and they really showed up with an open heart and an open mind. And I think that really set the tone for the week. And I'm so inspired by all of them for doing that. I will also say one of the other big thing that happened here that doesn't happen maybe in our day-to-day lives and why retreats are so special and why I thought this week was so impactful and powerful is I really encouraged the women on day one to check in and just ask themselves who was the woman showing up on the retreat? Like who walked through these doors? Who walked through the doors of the shala? Who's walking on the beach? Who's here in the dining hall? Like who's here? Who is it really? We've talked about this idea before, I think on the podcast. If not, I've shared this a lot with the women I work with, is that when we think about the self, we can think about it two ways. There's the capital S self, and that's our true essence. That's who we truly are. And then there's the lowercase s, and that is all of our roles and responsibilities, the masks that we wear. For many of us, that can be wife or mother, partner. Maybe it's the job that you have. Maybe it's an accountant or a doctor, yoga teacher, whatever that may be. And it's very easy for us to present ourselves to the world as those roles, those responsibilities. And we can show up to a space as like, well, I'm a mother and this is who I am. But really, if we step back, like none of that is who we are. It might be how you spend your time, but that's not actually who you are. And so if you really thought about this capital S self, like, who are you? It's something so much bigger and more powerful. And it's really simple. It's just pure love energy. That's what all of us are. But that's not how we present ourselves to the world because that can feel really vulnerable. And you're like, what does that even mean? And it just means that you're love. Like you're just love in its truest, most powerful form. And you don't have to be all of these things. You don't have to be a wife or a mom, or you don't have to be, whatever your job is. You can just be yourself. And for many of us, including myself, we don't give ourselves time to reconnect with that part of ourselves and ask ourselves, like, who truly am I? We're so busy in our day-to-day lives, achieving and becoming and acquiring things, degrees, homes, cars, whatever it may be, relationships, kids. We just keep acquiring these, I don't know, these different things that we forget that we don't need any of that and that who we truly are is just love. And so I'd said to the women on our first day together, the very first question I asked when we went around in a circle and introduced ourselves, it said, I want you to not introduce yourselves as like, I'm Susie and I've got 4 kids and this is what I do at home and I'm from, Arkansas. So I want to hear like, who actually are you? Like, who's the woman? Who's the real woman showing up in this space today? Who's here with us this week? That's the woman I want to get to know. I don't want to get to know your job. I don't want to get to know your kids. Not that those things aren't important, but I want to get to know you. Like, who are you? And as you move through this week and you speak to people and you have conversations, speak about who you are, not what you do, not who your kids are. Speak about you. Speak from your heart. Let us get to know that woman. And I will tell you right away from the very first person who shared, and I'm going to get emotional saying this because I still think this, when you're asked the question of like, who is it that showed up here this week? Who is it? A lot of the women didn't know. We said, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm still finding her. I've never stopped to ask. And that can feel really vulnerable for us and a little scary because for many of us, whether in our 40s or 50s or in 60s, have probably never asked ourselves the question of like, who am I outside of all these things? And so I really encouraged the women this week while they were there to just check in constantly with who that woman is. When you wake up in the morning, like, who is she right now? Who are you? Who's coming to the table? Who's having this conversation? And I will tell you, it created incredible conversations and incredible moments. I think we left. It's funny. We were on the bus ride home and I was laughing with a lot of the girls. I was like, I can't even tell you your children's names, but I know your deepest, darkest secrets. We got to really know each other on a level that in our day-to-day lives, we don't get to have. And so we got to share parts of ourselves. I was like, this is my most vulnerable moment. This is the shame I carry. This is the worry I carry. This is the heartache I carry. This is the joy that I carry. This is what inspires me. This is what I'm excited about. Like, get to know me as a woman, get to know me as just like myself, my soul, get to see my real soul. And yeah, I know many of the people couldn't even tell you how many kids I have or if I'm married and what my partner's name is. And that's like, thank goodness, thank God, because that's not what matters. I mean, not that those things aren't important, but we have so much space for that in our lives, right? Like whether it's in our careers, to see each other as a professional. We have ways in our life to see each other as mothers, but we don't have ways in our day-to-day life and our society to see each other just as women, to see each other as just pure love energy. And so I think what's so unique about this week and why I think it started off so beautifully and why we were able to share the way that we were is because A, the women showed up really as themselves, right? We weren't coming in with our masks. We weren't coming in with these like, like, let me present to you a certain way. It was like, this is just actually who I am. And then we allowed ourselves to be seen just as the women that we are, as pure love energy. And that when you can do that, something really magical happens. And so that was kind of how the week started. I mean, as for the actual week itself, like how it went, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. We did yoga every day. We had sunrise and sunset meditations. We skinny dipped, which is so funny because I don't think anyone was expecting that. Like I definitely was not expecting that. Just kind of organically happened. You're like, oh my God, that would make me so uncomfortable. They will tell you by the last night, everyone got into the ocean. Even if they were in a bathing suit or not in a bathing suit, we were all in there in the ocean. And then all of a sudden people were like throwing bathing suits off and we were like, oh my God, what is happening? And you have to laugh. Like, I think that was the beautiful thing too, is like no one took themselves too seriously. We're all just like laughing so hard. And you end up finding different parts of yourself at that. There were a lot of girls like, I never would have expected myself in a million years to be in an ocean with 24 other people. And P.S., it was like basically pitch black out. The sun had set and we're all in there swimming in like the moonlight and like ripping off bathing suits and just laughing our heads off. And it was just, there's no way to predict how those things are going to go. And it just organically, these things happen. But so let's see, we did yoga, we skinny dipped, we had great meals. People napped, went on excursions, people surfed, they did waterfall hikes. We took long walks on the beach. I don't know, and slept a lot and laughed a lot. People were playing cards. Like it was just like a whole week of, I don't know, some of us were joking that it kind of felt like adult camp. I was like, this is like camp for adults to just connect with yourselves. And the great part is I think sometimes there's this beauty of being able to show up in a space where no one knows you and give yourself an opportunity to be seen by other women for who you really are. And like, I find myself on these types of retreats being really silly and goofy and recognizing, oh, that's my true nature. That's who I truly am. And it's just with these women, I feel really safe to be that way. And so it brought out my inner child. And I think a lot of women had that where they were able to bring out their true nature and learn something new about themselves. And that was just really incredible to witness. So the week itself was like filled with a lot of neat things and filled with a lot of downtime. Let's think. What did I learn? What am I taking away from this week? I mean, so many things. There were a handful of themes that kept presenting themselves. And right away, the very first one was letting go of control. We were taking our 6-hour bus ride to Cambutal. And you guys, I will tell you, remember I said I get nervous? Like, that you have to do things scared anyway. I will tell you that first day, I mean, my heart was racing. I was so nervous. Even though I believed I was going to be just fine, like my heart and my head knew you're going to be fine. This is going to be a great week. There was still this pit in my stomach of like, and I just wanted it to go well. And I wanted everyone to like see the magic in this location and see the magic in themselves. And I knew as a retreat leader that like I had no control over that. Like it's either going to go a certain way or it's not. And I had to remove my ego and remove myself from the situation, allow it to just organically unfold. And so as I was practicing that, like really, so this here's us. We're on the bus ride there, and I'm just like thinking to myself, like, just gotta let things be, Katie. Just let it go how it's gonna go, it's gonna go. And this has nothing to do with you. Let it just be about the women and take your ego out of it. You don't need to control things. And right away, you on this 6-hour bus ride, PS, we're in the middle of nowhere, we get a flat tire. And I was like, motherfucker. I was like, okay, I was ready to let go of control, but like not that ready to let go of control. So here we were stranded with a flat tire. I knew immediately, I'm like, you cannot panic. If everyone sees you panic, they're going to panic. It's like, do not panic. But definitely in the inside, I was panicking. And I was like, what does this mean? We're going to be late. And I knew it was just the universe being like, Katie, you're going to have to let things be as they are. It's going to get sloppy. It's going to get messy. People at this point, we had 2 women who had missed their flights. And so I was like, okay, I got to get them there. The bus now had a, had a flat tire, and then it started pouring rain. I was like, oh my God. I told everyone like, it's going to be beautiful. Come to Panama. It's going to be sunny. And here it was like raining, and we were stuck on the side of the road with a flat tire. And I was like, this is not how I pictured things going. And so we got to the resort later than anticipated, which was okay. And then we had a little like round table moment where we all sat around, and everyone at Sansara kind of explained how the week was going to go. And they were so wonderful, and everyone was listening. And then I had my first moment with the women to like connect with everyone. And I had this whole like opening circle I was planning on doing on our first night there on Sunday night. And I was looking around the room and looking at the faces, and I just saw defeat. I was like, these girls are exhausted. They are tired. They have sat with flat tires. It's pouring rain. They are hungry. And I just looked at everyone and was like, so I had a whole thing planned for this evening, and we're not going to do any of it. Abort mission. Like we're not doing an opening circle. And I was like, instead, we're just going to roll out our yoga mats. And even then I had this like in my head, I was like, we're going to do a 45-minute flow. And I was like, we've got like 20 minutes before people are going to melt down. They need food. They need to get to their rooms. And it was just a really big lesson for me. You can be really prepared in life, and you can have the best of intentions, and then things are going to happen. And you have a choice in that moment to either let your ego run the show and stick to your guns and be like, nope, this is what we're doing. We're going to power through. Or you just say, you look around the room and you say, what is it that these women need right now? And you take your ego out of it and you say, guys, I had a plan, and we're not going to do that plan because it's not going to happen. And instead, we're going to do this. And I'm going to give you some extra time in your rooms to take a shower, to call your loved ones, to get yourself settled. And we'll meet in the dining room and we'll start over tomorrow. And I did that. And that took me a second. When I got back to my room, I felt a little defeated. I was like, gosh, that's not how I pictured the first day here. This isn't how I pictured opening circle. And I just reminded myself of that. They are going to get whatever they need. It had nothing to do with me. My plans didn't matter. My control had to be, I had to put that aside and trust that the next morning we'd wake up and all would be right in the world and we'd figure it out. And then that is exactly what happened. We ended up having a beautiful dinner on that first night. And we all got up bright and early, and we showed up at the yoga shala, and we had our opening circle, and I'm going to get emotional. And it was perfect. And I'm not perfect because it was like how I planned it, because obviously plans something totally different. It was perfect because it was exactly what it was meant to be. And everyone shared exactly what they were meant to share. And I think we all felt this moment of like looking around the room, being like, we're here, we're going to have a great week together. And the magic just unfolded from there. But I think the only reason, not the only reason, but I think one of the reasons it could unfold that way is because I took my ego out of it. And I just kept saying to myself, like, this has nothing to do with you. This whole week has nothing to do with you. You might be sitting in this circle, you might be inviting people to share, but you have nothing to do with this. And the moment I could take myself out of the equation and turn it back over to the women and just give them the space to share what they needed to share or to do whatever they needed to do, it allowed for the magic of the group to begin to unfold. And it happened in that first opening circle and it just snowballed for the rest of the week. And it took on a life of its own that I never could have predicted. And I could never feel like, and I don't want to say I could never get my hands around and get control of. I didn't even try to. I just kept reminding myself the whole week of like, they've got this. And the group is going to be what the group is. And they're going to share what they're going to share. And they're going to go as deep as they can. And it's all out of your hands. And you just continue to hold space for people. And you continue to keep your heart open and keep your heart clear. And I just kept reminding myself that even though I was there as a teacher in many ways, I was there as a student. So I showed up every morning and I did my own meditation practice. And I kept my heart really clear. I kept my head really clear. And I just detached from any expectation about how the day was going to go, how a class was going to go. And I just allowed something bigger than myself to take over. And I just surrendered. And I just would sit there in the space, whether it was a meditation or they were journaling, and just held space and just allowed myself to be the thing that I was saying to the women, allow myself to be pure love energy. As cheesy as that sounds, like I wasn't there as a teacher. I wasn't there as a leader. I was just there as love. I was just there as pure love energy. And I think when we can do that in all parts of our lives, people feel that. And so if you are someone who, even if just in our homes or in a relationship or in our communities, in our churches, in our schools, if you can show up with your ego out of the equation and you can show up as just pure love energy, people feel that. And you don't have to do anything. And when people feel safe in your environment and when people feel relaxed in your presence and they feel seen by you and they feel held by you because your ego is removed, it really allows for something magical to unfold. And I can't give myself credit like I did anything great. I don't know what it was. Just something came over me when I was there and I was like, oh, girl, you thought this week was about you. Turns out you have nothing to do with this. I just would chuckle at myself. I think you go into these situations thinking you're going to learn one thing and then you come out and you're like, oh, I see. This was just to humble me. And so I thought that this week was going to be about me learning to step into the seat of the teacher. And in many ways it was, but really it was once again, to find humility and to humble myself and to find myself in the role of the student again and just take my ego out of everything that I do. So that was sort of the first lesson I learned. Wow. So we're already crying on lesson one. And then I'd say the other big thing, really the biggest that I saw is that at the end of the day, we are all hurting in some way. I think there are some people who hide it better. And, I know there will be people who are further along. I hate the word journey, but we'll say they're, further along in the journey, that they're healed and they are whole, and they'll say, let me teach you how to heal and let me teach you how to fix your pain. And I would just say, when you meet those people in your life, you run as fast as you can. Because anyone who says they're fully healed or enlightened or whole or feel like they're fully complete on their journey, they are lying to themselves and to you. Because this whole experiment we're on, this whole thing of life that we're doing, this journey home to ourselves never fully ends. Like, you never really get there. Pain and suffering will always be a part of it until the day we die. And some of our pain and suffering looks different. And while, yes, we can like heal ourselves along the way, it is an ongoing, never ending process, a never ending journey. And I think what was so beautiful that I witnessed this week is that it didn't matter the women's stories, right? They were all so uniquely different, whether it was ranging in ages of young to old, mothers, non-mothers, married, non-married, women who worked in the home or out of the home. It doesn't matter what the socio and economic background was. It didn't matter race. It didn't matter where you lived. The stories were all so different, and yet the universal message was, do you love me? If I show you my pain, if I show you my shame, if I show you the things that are the most vulnerable, will you still love me? Will you stay? And I think it really came down to like pain and suffering and heartache is just part of the human existence, right? It's unavoidable. We all experience it. There's no one who is immune to heartache. And all we really truly want in this world is to know that we are safe, that we are worthy, and that we are seen. And so when you have an opportunity in a group like this to say, here is my heart, and here are the things that I'm the most ashamed of, or I'm the most tender. And you have 24 other women who are witnessing you and saying, not only do we see you, and not only will we stay and love you, but we're going to lean in closer. Tell us more. And that's all anyone really wants, just to be seen, right? That's all you or I want, is to have someone say, I see you and I love you and I'm not going anywhere. And I think that's what was so incredible about this week is I saw that happen over and over and over again. I saw that happening in the yoga shala as people would share in the circles, but I saw that happening on walks. I saw that happening in the dining hall. I saw that happening when people would finish surfing and they'd hug each other and they'd share a moment. It was over and over this moment of like, let me show you who I am and will you stay and will you love me? Pain and heartache and suffering is inevitable for all of us. And I think that looks different. It doesn't, whether that was like capital T trauma or lowercase t trauma, whatever the suffering is, we all have it in our lives. But when you can get to a point that you understand like it's not your fault and it happened to you too, and we can share our stories and be seen and have someone mirror it back for us, it somehow liberates ourselves from that pain. Like we can step back from it. It creates a little bit of freedom, a little bit of separation. It can say like, yes, that heartache still exists, whatever that heartache is. And some of us, it's deep, deep heartache. And that heartache isn't going anywhere. That can still exist. And can I hold it a little looser? Can I maybe see myself in a new light that maybe separates myself from that? And there's something so incredibly powerful when that happens. I think one of the other big things that I knew in my head, but it was so good to see it happening is to understand this idea, like we are not meant to do any of this alone. Listen, I am a really independent woman. I can do a lot of things on my own. I was raising 4 kids basically without JP around, without help. And there are a lot of things I can do on my own. I'm tired of doing things on my own. I don't want to do it on my own. I don't want to be alone anymore. I want a sisterhood. Like I want a group of women who support me. I'm tired of carrying the burden alone. I think we live in a world that is really isolating. And even though so many of us are surrounded by people all day, or we have people online that we are connecting with, we live very isolated lives and can feel really lonely. And so you have the opportunity to get together with 24 other women or 25 other women, and you look around the circle and you're reminded as you look to the left and look to the right, like these women have you, no questions asked. Like you don't need to ask for their help and support. It's already there. It's right there. It's just such a powerful reminder, like that we're not alone in the world. Like we are not alone. And you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to carry any of this alone. You know, I think that there's a little bit of there can be a preconceived notion that's placed on women about how women can be. I saw it yesterday. Someone online shared about this idea of like mean girls. I was like, oh, are we still doing that? I actually don't think that's how women are. Like, I don't think that's our true nature because I will tell you, I witnessed women in their true nature this week, and they are open and they're loving and they're welcoming. And there's not a jealous or catty or envious or weird bone in their body. It is so pure. I think you have to be in a situation though where women feel safe to be themselves, where they feel safe to be their true nature. And then when you see who they really are, which is loving and supportive and welcoming, I think that women in our heart of hearts want to be there for other women. Like, I think that's what we're innately called to do. And I think it's what feels best for us. But I think that that can be shunned sort of in our world and we're sort of pitted against each other. But I don't think that's actually who we are. Because I will tell you, I witnessed 24 women welcome and embrace with no questions asked women from all different walks of earth or walks of life, whatever you call it, without any hesitation. I heard someone say this week, they were talking about how they were nervous coming into, they're like, it's just, it can be intimidating, a group of 25 women, and I didn't know anyone. And I was worried, like, who am I going to eat lunch with or who am I going to eat breakfast with? Like, it's funny because I thought that coming into the week. And then right away on day one, like, I never even gave it a thought when I walked in the dining hall who I was going to sit with. I knew I could sit anywhere and everyone would welcome me. And I knew what she was talking about because, like, I feel it too. And I think all of us felt it. It was this sense of you belonged. And I think at the core of who we are as creatures, we just want to belong. Like, you just want to know, am I welcome here? Do they like me? Do they want me here? And so I think this week, which felt so good for so many of us because there was no question. It was like, you just knew, like, inherently, like, yes, I belong. And yes, I'm welcome here. And I can pull a seat up at any one of these tables with any of these women who are talking. And they're going to say, get in here. Tell us what you think. What's going on with you? Tell me how your day's going. Join the conversation. Here's what we were talking about. What do you think? And that you were welcome and you belonged. And you guys, there is no better feeling on the planet than to feel like you are a part of something and to feel like you are seen and to feel like there are a group of other women who will carry your burden and who want you sitting next to you. I saw from the moment we stepped foot in the shala to the last day when people would come in and we had the bolsters sit in a circle, and people would come in at all different times and either come with a roommate or not the roommate, and they'd walk in with coffee or smoothies. And it was so interesting to see where people sat. No one ever sat next to the same people. And the moment someone would sit down, whoever's seated to the left or the right of them would place their hand like on a leg and give them a little smile. And like, I didn't tell people to do that. It was so interesting. It just happened. I was witnessing it over and over again. I was like, wow, these women are just like grabbing each other's arms and hands, giving each other's hugs, saying, sit, get your butt down here, sit next to me. And a week before, they didn't even know the person's name. There's something so cool about that. And that is what is so magical about retreats. You can't, it's too hard to explain, but it is just this sense of belonging that you don't have to do it alone and you're not alone and that you're loved and you belong. There are so many things about this week that I want to share with you about, but I am choosing to right now keep some of that private and sacred between the girls that were there. I'll just say that there were a lot of really incredible moments and really like powerful shares. And I don't want to say like rituals because it sounds like we're having sex, but there were some really just incredible things that happened that, again, like I sort of was hoping things would happen. And again, it took on a totally different life of its own that I will share more another day. And for now, I'm just going to keep it between us and the 24 girls that were there. As far as what I learned about myself and about this week, I'm still sort of processing that. It's a really big thing for me. I think just seeing myself in a new role, seeing myself as a teacher was really important. I think it just reconfirmed for me why I'm here on this earth, like what I'm here to do. And it has nothing to do with me. It's just being of service to other people. I had shared with the women during closing circle, I had said, I obviously have birthed 4 kids and I'm a mother and I'm so proud of that. But even probably more so than that is being able to create moments like this. And this will go down as one of the greatest gifts and one of the most incredible moments of my life. Right there with giving birth, it felt like that for me. It felt that transformative for me. And that's selfish of me to talk about how I felt about it, but it really was. It was that transformative for me. So all to say, it definitely, like, I have the itch. Like, I was like, okay, this is the first of many, 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 many more to come. And it reconfirmed my love of yoga, of the practice of, that sacred ritual. It reconfirmed for me my love of mindfulness and meditation. It reconfirmed for me my love of women and the power that we have when we get together. And I know this is just the beginning. So, with that being said, I'm just going to close by saying if you are one of the 24 girls who are there, you will always have a special place in my heart. You, we talked about Gampo Abbey and the circle that, is with us everywhere. We are always in that monastery, travels with us everywhere, but you are in that circle for me. You will always be a part of my universe. And I'm so grateful for how you showed up. I was so inspired by how these women showed up. I was hoping they would come with open hearts, and man, that and then some, I took this idea of having an open heart and clear eyes, of just like coming in with open eyes and open heart and just letting things unfold. And they did that and more. So to the women who were there and sharing this experience with me, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We will be doing another one of these. So we will be going back to Panama next March. So March 2026, we will be going back to Panama and doing something similar. I learned a lot about this week, about what I want to take with me moving forward and how I want to continue to hone these weeks and improve these weeks. Not that, not that I'm looking to improve them, but I was like, okay, I learned a lot and I'm going to take those lessons with me to continue to grow and evolve this experience for women coming back. So the doors will open for the women who are on this retreat this week. They will have an opportunity to claim their spots again. And then it will open up to the women on my email list. And then it will open up to the general public. So we'll be sharing that probably in the next couple of weeks. But we will be doing Panama again in March. I will also be having a retreat that will be shorter, probably 3 or 4 days. We are finalizing the location on that right now as we speak. That I will probably have, the time this podcast comes out, I bet that will be finalized. And so I will put a link in the show notes. Most likely going to be here in the United States, and it'll be like a long weekend, and it's going to either be the end of September or beginning of October. So we're trying to finalize that date and location. So we'll have that for you soon. So it will be totally different than Panama, but also very much the same heart and same intention. And so if you were like, I couldn't make it to Panama, I couldn't go that far, and I couldn't take that length of time away from my life, I hear you, I see you, and I'm finding opportunities for us to gather that are easier for some of us to make it to. So we'll be having that and many more in 2026. So we're starting to think about other locations in 2026. So if there are places you want to go to, things you want to do, let me know, because I will tell you this retreat I thought was going to be good. Like in my heart, I was like, I think it's going to be really good. And you guys, it blew me away. It was more profound than I ever could have imagined. It was more beautiful and more impactful than I ever could have imagined. And it just reconfirmed for me that this is just one of many, many, many to come. So I hope you're ready, because I definitely am, because this is like now my favorite thing on the earth to do. And the kids were like, wait, Mom, you're leaving again this fall? I was like, oh yeah. And I'm going to go again in March. And I am just kind of like, the train has left the station, the ship has sailed. Like I am hooked. And I hope that you are excited, because I want to see many, many more of you sitting around those circles. Okay. Thanks for joining me. I love you all. And I will talk to you next week. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope it spoke to you and you enjoyed it. If you would take a minute to subscribe to the show, and it would help you, because you would never miss an episode, and it would help me because you would never miss an episode. And if you would take a minute to just click one of those stars to rate and review this episode, it would do wonders for the show and mean the world to me. Thanks so much for being here and just all your continued support. I can't wait to talk to you again next week.